This is the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Hello, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. And my sweetheart, Kim, is off in the mountains communing with nature, and which she absolutely loves to do. I mean, she just loves nature. And I like the city. But anyway, we have a very important guest today because the best thing about the Rich Dad Radio Show is I get to talk to some very smart people, and most importantly, some open-minded people, because that seems to be a rare quality today is open-mindedness. You know, I mean, Jeff is a very smart-minded, open-minded guy. But Jeff, would you give us a little bit of background? You know, you already started about the price of tomorrow.
Yeah.
You wrote it for your daughter and two sons. What is your background, and why did you write the book?
I'm a technology entrepreneur, and I built a lot of technology companies. And what I was struggling, my first technology company, the technology, it took 3 years to build the logistics technology, and about $5 million. That technology is available today for about $50 a month. So when so what I realized is, why isn't everything I'm doing equating to lower prices? Right. And what an entrepreneur does to derive value is looks at the world and says, why does this work? Why does this industry work this way? And I can provide more value.
Correct.
And so that's what I've done all my life as an entrepreneur.
Right.
And then what I realized is the system I was operating in, the entire system at a meta level, we were all operating in, was the biggest opportunity of our lives for the same reasons. Prices should be coming down, right, and prices were going up. Right. And I wanted to look deeper into that. And I realized when I looked deeper into that, I realized over the last 20 years, to stop prices from coming down, there had been $185 trillion of global easing of printing money or making up money to drive $46 trillion of GDP growth. And you realize, okay, on one path, two totally different forces. One path had to drive prices up. One path had to drive prices down. Which one would win? What are all of the different secondary things that would happen as a result of those two forces colliding against each other? Okay, so I wanted to explore it.
So let me give you an example, because, you know, years and years ago, I was a student of Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller, and he talked about this. He says prices should be coming down. It's called ephemeralization. That what entrepreneurs and capitalists do is they provide better products at better prices.
Right.
So when I look at the homelessness problem exploding, a lot of the homeless have jobs. They just can't afford to live in a house. Like, the government's charging them $90,000 for a pup tent or something in San Francisco. And so there's forces that want to keep prices high, which is the Fed, the Treasury, and Wall Street. And then there's the entrepreneur who's working to bring prices down, to do more for less, to make a better world for everybody.
Yeah. So keep on that for a second. If an entrepreneur is in a free market, doesn't give you more value, the business fails.
Out of business.
Yeah, it's out of business. Right. And so we celebrate essentially the monopolies we're creating through Google, Facebook, Amazon, everything else. We're celebrating what we're talking about.
Right.
Apple.
So what Jeff is talking about, I think you mentioned, what was it? Netflix versus Blockbuster Video.
Yeah.
And Netflix had a better system.
Yeah.
The same product, basically, but a better system. The Blockbuster's out of business.
So Robert, this is an important concept, because today, right now, as a derivative of what we're talking about, people are getting confused and they're blaming each other.
Correct.
I don't blame Blockbuster.
No.
It was impossible for them to transition their stores from 9,000 stores to a model driven by technology. In fact, all of their advantage became their disadvantage. And what they did is they added candy aisles to their stores. And we laugh at that. And we laugh at that. But ask yourself, what would you do? When all of a sudden download speeds were really slow and then they were fast, and your business model changed in an instance. That's what technology does. It allows different value, and we celebrate that every day, and it's deflationary. Now ask the same thing on our financial system. It's not bad people. It's a system that it's built on credit. And if you allow deflation, the credit gets more and more expensive, and it can't, and everything would reset. So everybody in the financial system is trying to outrun deflation, which is a stronger force, by printing more money, and all the secondary consequences are as a result of that fight.
So let me say this again. When I was studying with Fuller, this is in the 80s, it was a novel idea to me. And he was talking about we should always be working to do more for less.
That's the point of humanity.
Yes,
everything what we do.
Be done more for less, and everything for free. So it was almost socialistic. So I had a hard time listening to him. But I also realized I had to change the way I thought about things. So when we designed the cash flow board game and all this, the way I was doing it, we were going around to Singapore, to Canada, to the US, all over the world trying to teach this product. And I said, if I produce a board game, it'll teach more people for less effort, more efficiently. It works harder than me, little game, So that when I started looking at this little thing here, it's the iPhone. What Steve Jobs did, he made this product. This product is 1,000 times smarter than him. It works harder. It goes all around the world and all this. He's providing more for less. So naturally, Apple should make the money. And you know what I mean? That's capitalism. That's ephemeralization and all this. And hopefully someday this will be obsolete. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I am, but because people are so when you have misinformation in the base layer of money, so you're distorting.
Correct. We're talking about something. We're talking about money versus the product.
Yeah, I know, and I'm going to get there. When you have misinformation in money, then you must have misinformation everywhere else. So a lot of people would look at Apple, what you just said, and say, that monopoly, we got to break it up, without the realization that actually the monopoly is getting stronger and stronger and stronger because of the misinformation and money. It wouldn't look like that under a free market. There would be other competitors that would be racing in to try to drive that faster. But you're right we use it because it provides us tremendous value, and most of the apps are free.
Yeah, there's so much free on that phone. It's amazing. And I don't like the censorship that other people are putting in there, but that's a whole nother story there.
Right.
But so the other thing, we're talking about Bitcoin today. So I got into Bitcoin when it went from 20, and then I'm basically watch a trading forum. And when it dropped down to, I think, 7, and moved back up. I said, okay, I'm back in. So I was back in at 9. So when somebody says, what do you think about Bitcoin? I said, I'm very happy. And they said, what if it comes back down? I said, then I'll buy more.
That's a good answer. That's a really good answer.
But I don't really know much about it. So when I was listening to you speak on whose program it was, your depth of knowledge on why Bitcoin is the money, is the future of money. Would you mind going into that? Because I'm just a guy who likes to make money, but I don't understand Bitcoin.
Sure, and I think first off, I need to say it's way bigger than money for me. What I did after the book. I was looking at these two forces, and everything I said in the book is absolute facts. We have technology that's making things cheaper, and we have a system that's trying to make things more expensive. Right. And so, what I was looking for is a solution. Any solution. Could the existing system change itself to provide abundance to humanity? Or would this existing system fail through war, revolution, everything else like it has done in the past? And I looked, and I wanted to actually find a solution out of the existing system. But what I realized is system changes. Why Kodak doesn't change themselves, why Blockbuster doesn't change themselves. There's too much inertia in the system. And so out of everything that I found, then I found and I was already in Bitcoin, but I became all in. No, I'm not saying all in. It's not all my wealth, but I thought this is going to be the best thing to be able to transition humanity from one system to another system, and the new system would be a way better upgrade for humanity. It would be beneficial for everybody.
So why is that? Why is that? What do you see as a technology guy?
So the technology, there's a lot of pieces to this question to do in a quick. Exactly, a lot of pieces to this question. But first, the scarcity. So you either have abundance in money and scarcity in everything else, where you have scarcity in money and abundance and everything else. We are moving to a more and more digital world where prices should come down as things become information. So as things become information, if you think about I used to buy CDs for $19.95 per CD. There was a whole infrastructure of people that said only these artists can be seen. Now I buy unlimited music for $9.95 a month. And so I get way more for less. And it's the way things are moving in everything. That means that you either have two choices. If you run an inflationary system, which you create more money out of nothing against that system,
which is going on with the Fed and the Treasury and the
exactly. That's the world we live in today.
Right.
Then what you do is you concentrate all power in government unilaterally. It just keeps on moving. 26% of GDP today is government spending, and it has to structurally get more and more and more. You centralize all control in government, and proven throughout history, if you centralize all control in government, it looks really bad for the humans.
Communism.
Exactly.
The definition of communism is central control government and central control economy.
So the question, yes, so that path is a given, and that path is where we're going. And by the way, if you think about how instead of getting mad at people, think about them acting in their own rational best interests. The government pushes up prices unnaturally. So house prices go up, rent prices go up. There's a whole bunch of people that don't have those houses or assets, and they lose from that. And who do you think they go to help save them from the prices that were manipulated higher in the first place? Same government. Right. And so back to the same government. So you have this political divide with both parts of the government saying the same thing. It's their fault, when it's actually the fault of base money.
Right.
But it's natural, because people are incented to invest. It's to say, I need money desperately to feed my family. So they empower.
So that's where the frustration boils to the surface too.
Exactly. So what they do is both Republicans and Democrats are fighting over a battle up here, and it's way down on base money. That's a different. And so both parties are printing more and more money and trying to drive inflation in a system, and it's unfixable from the system. And what you get is a whole bunch of people yelling at each other, thinking that they have the answer, and they're all wrong.
Right.
And that has to get worse.
Right.
On the existing system.
Jeff, we need to move on, but I just want to recap what we've been talking about here. A pure entrepreneur and a pure capitalist is always looking at how can we provide a better product at a better price.
More value for people.
How can we serve more people, not fewer people?
Right.
And the trouble with the existing system with the Federal Reserve Bank, the Treasury, and Wall Street, it's only to serve the rich.
Yeah.
And then you have homelessness spreading all over. People are afraid of inflation, and they have to have inflation, because if it stops inflating, we go to depression.
Yeah.
So that's why we wanted Jeff Booth on here to discuss that. But then the next subject I want to get in, because I'm very, when I was studying with Buckminster Fuller, he said that he predicted Bitcoin, and he predicted Bitcoin as he was watching young kids, probably your generation, playing video games. And they were already using tokens. So with that, he said, that's the future. And so the old guys of my generation are still clinging to the greenback and the dollars, but the future was coming up already. So that's why I really enjoyed talking to Fuller. But we come back. The most important question is, I've been hearing more and more of the naysayers against Bitcoin that it's pollution. And, if you're not green today, you're dead. So I was listening to another podcast, you speaking about pollution. How polluting is Bitcoin? So when we come back, we'll be getting right into that. Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. You can listen to the Rich Dad Radio program anytime, anywhere on iTunes or Android and YouTube. And please leave a review when you listen. And all of our programs are archived at richdadradio.com. We archive them because we're just purely an educational company. We make no recommendations of buy this, sell that, do that. And most important, listen to it again. Go to richdadradio.com. You'll pick up twice as much in the repetition. But if you really want to understand what we're talking about today, have a friend, family, and business associate listen to it, and you guys discuss it as a group. Because when you discuss it, more of what we're saying will seep into your mind here. So our guest today is a person I respect tremendously, Jeff Booth. His book is a great book, The Price of Tomorrow, because it really fits in with one of my teachers, Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller. He was called a futurist. In fact, John Denver called him the grandfather of the future, because that's all he looked at. And Fuller was talking about a thing called ephemeralization. He also predicted Bitcoin. He also predicted the internet long after he died. He was way ahead of his time because he was a futurist. And so we have our guest today, Jeff Booth, The Price of Tomorrow. And what Jeff is saying fits exactly in, as Buckminster Fuller was saying, is that we have to be doing more for less and serving more people. That is our job, not to raise prices. And if we do our job, which is do more for less for more people, we make a lot of money. And it's quite a novel idea. So Jeff, once again, welcome back. And once again, give a quick reason why you wrote the book, The Price of Tomorrow, because I thought that was very, very altruistic or important.
I wrote it for my kids. I wrote it for when I realized the way the world was heading, and all the signposts. I realized that you had two forces hitting each other: technology that was creating more for less on an exponential scale, and a government policy trying to do the exact opposite, give less for more, essentially make your currency worth less. And those systems naturally were going to cause a whole bunch of society to break.
Okay, and you're a technology entrepreneur. I know the iPhone is beyond my capabilities. But anyway. But so I listen to guys like you, and you're talking about Bitcoin. It keeps my spirit up as I'm waiting for it to retrace a little bit more today on the price. But then my future is bright with Bitcoin. I have gold, silver, Bitcoin, and bullets, as they say, because I get ready for the transition. But one of the things I've been picking up is, because I'm working on a Green New Deal project with Marin Katusa, but what's popping up more and more is people are saying Bitcoin is polluting. It's a very, environmentally unfriendly product. And you were saying something on another program why it isn't. So
it's exactly the opposite. So Robert, this is really important, and for a lot of your listeners, because this is so challenging, that it's a different system. A deflationary system based on a free market is totally different system, and they're measuring the system from the negative externalities of an existing system, so they can't see it. So what ends up happening is technology requires a digitally native currency that allows for deflation. Every other, and say that again and again and again, it's a requirement of technology.
Yet again,
technology requires a digitally native currency that allows for deflation. And why? Because every other currency must concentrate all power in the hands of a few people with how fast technology is going. That is such an important concept. It's a requirement. Now, out of all of those things, Bitcoin is that, I believe, is that currency. It's the biggest network. It's the strongest proof of work, is actually the thing that takes currency out of government's hands to be able to manipulate currency, to be able to continue an inflationary policy against a stronger deflationary force. Those are facts.
So what you're saying is that the government, as it stands today, must have inflation.
Must have inflation. And
what Fuller was saying was that God wants all of us to do more with less to serve more people.
Just think about it in that point. Why do we use technology in the first place? We use technology to free our time. It is an abomination that it doesn't flow to more people because it's being centralized, and that time is being robbed by central bankers. So most people are getting, the rich are getting really well, their time is saved, but the poor are getting killed by that. And it's a recipe for disaster and wars and revolution. That's what ends up happening. And you can see the signposts everywhere. So you must take, Buckminster Fuller also predicted an energy currency, right, which Bitcoin is. It's tied to energy. So now on the climate conversation. So at the highest level, remember, these are two different systems. At the highest level, just think about this. Inflation equals climate change. So on a finite planet, that you're going to manipulate currency to grow, to pretend you can grow forever, and you're going to keep people working harder and harder and harder and harder.
Okay.
And they need more jobs to be able to pay for artificially higher prices, and they need more oil to drive to more jobs, to more and everything else. And you're going to keep that going forever. It's a recipe for the earth to fail.
So let me give you one example. Is right now the way I used to do these types of interviews, I had to fly to New York from Hawaii, and then go in a hotel, stay there for 3 days, all this money, and then come back. And then sometimes I never got on the radio show or the TV show.
Right.
So now we're on and off.
And so that's just starting. Most of the deflation is in front of us. And so let's now talk about energy specifically. So today, solar and batteries driving about 11% cheaper energy per year on a course. So now it's one of the lowest sources of energy, lowest prices of energy, and it's expanding rapidly. People could say, I don't like solar, everything else, but those are the facts about the data. That means you have more for less in energy on a trend that's getting more for less all the time. And energy is the number one input in everything else. So if energy is now lower price and getting more abundant because of technology, then it means everything else must be falling at the same pace of energy as well. So it's actually more deflationary. So what would you do if you're a central banker and you had that math equation, and deflation made this whole system fail? What you would do is you would print more money, and that printing money would make oil prices go up. And then then a whole bunch of companies that couldn't make profit in oil before at the oil price would now be profitable, and they'd run more oil, more jobs, more oil, more everything else. And so you have these two systems that, they're moving further and further away. And why you can actually see what the other system must do. Remember when I wrote the book, I predicted how much money had to keep coming. It needs to be exponentially more on one side, because technology is moving it exponentially more the other way. And it's not just the money. It's the money is essentially robbing people's individual rights and freedoms and concentrating power in the government. And what they're not seeing is that. But worse, climate can't be solved. If you care about environmentalism and climate, it cannot be solved from an inflationary monetary system. An inflationary monetary system means the world must burn. Must.
Say that, repeat that, go back, push the repeat button.
Yeah. An inflationary monetary system, essentially growth forever, manipulated growth forever on a finite planet of fixed resources, must equal planetary destruction. Good. It must. Inflation equals climate change. And so if you're an environmentalist, you cannot, the problem of environment cannot be solved from the system, because what's happening is the free market is actually making things cheaper, and that technology is driving. So now you have clean, green energy, making it so it's cheap, it's abundant and everything else. And people are using it because market forces are demanding, because it's cheaper, and the system must create prices that go up artificially.
Correct.
So these are in contradiction of each other, and you have a whole bunch of environmentalists that actually believe Bitcoin is bad, and Bitcoin is actually the only thing I think right now that can save our planet. Because it's a different system. It forces a different system. It forces a deflationary system, and that deflationary system creates the broadest based abundance for humanity. You get more. Everybody gets more for less.
Correct. The way Fuller. This is 1981. He wrote a book called Critical Path. Max Kaiser, who is very, very pro Bitcoin.
Yep.
He's a Bucky Fuller devotee also. So I'm looking to get him on so we can talk about Bucky, because Bucky was a futurist. So your book is The Price of Tomorrow, and we're talking about tomorrow, but it's today.
Yeah,
the technology is here.
It's moving so fast,
Yeah.
and people with recency bias, especially when you're measuring a system by people are measuring short term their house going up, without the realization that the house wouldn't have gone up without $185 trillion of stimulus.
Correct.
And so they're caught in a system that's getting worse and worse.
So let me go back to 81. I was listening to Fuller. He says, think about this. Every morning people get up, that costs money. They get in their cars and they drive, and every time they stop at a traffic light, they got millions of horsepower sitting there just burning fuel as they drive to work. He says, think about that. If you just cut that out, we would save the planet.
Yeah. Well, so let's use that example as far as where technology is going. So today, capacity utilization of an automobile is 6%. Most of the time it sits in your garage or sits in your garage at work. So we don't use it 94% of the time.
I have 6 cars, so they're
right. So it's worse for you, and same for me. Same for me. So we don't use it most of the time. What happens when cars can drive themselves?
Yep.
Which is coming.
Right.
So when cars drive themselves, what ends up happening is you change a structure of an industry, and essentially I could rent my car back to the fleet, and it could pick up other people at the same time. So capacity utilization explodes. All the car manufacturers that are predicting more and more sales of cars, it's actually going to be way less sales of cars as we get more for less. Parking changes in cities dramatically, and and there's nothing that can stop these forces. Again, the other side, what do you think is happening right now? As governments are pushing, I can tell you from my businesses, as governments are pushing up labor rates by inflation, what would a natural business do to be able to compete? People say, I can't find talent. That's not true. If you want to pay them $100 or $200 an hour, you can find all the talent you want, right? Yeah. You can't find talent at the price that the market will pay for your services.
Right.
And so what do you do when that becomes evident? You remove labor with technology faster, creating a cycle that these forces are driving in the opposite directions.
So let's go back again to the argument, because it's come up more and more and more and more, the Bitcoin people haters, or any kind of crypto haters. I don't understand why they argue, but it's like my friend Peter Schiff, he's always arguing against Bitcoin. I say, Peter, why do you care? You know what I mean? But people want to be right, make other things wrong. Say it again, okay? So somebody says to Jeff Booth, Bitcoin is polluting the planet. How do you respond?
Bitcoin saves the planet.
How? How specifically?
So that proof of work, having a currency that is unable to be manipulated in inflation against a deflationary force, that essentially takes currency out of the hands of government and puts it empowers people as a result, allows prices to follow their natural order in declining.
That means people have to work less to survive.
Exactly. Or so those two different systems. So that's in one system. Even Keynes predicted a 10-hour work week from today. What he didn't realize is his own policies would be used to create this Frankenstein monster. And so technology allows you to work, you get more for less. It should be pretty ubiquitous. It should be common knowledge in everybody's minds, because those are the technology companies we use every day. Why wouldn't life look like that when we're all rational people making decisions in our best interests, and we make decisions that should bring prices down? Now, if that's the case, why do we also believe in a world where prices must go up when every rational actor in a system will vote with their own wallet prices coming down? But we believe in a system that looks exactly the opposite. Anyways, tied to climate change, those two systems are polar opposite. One system, inflationary monetary system, must burn the earth. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse, exponentially worse. And the other system provides the broadest based abundance and is in harmony with nature.
So, Jeff, thank you very much. I could listen to you all day long. Always welcome back to the Rich Dad Show. Anything you want to say something?
Thanks.
I love it. When I read your book, The Price of Tomorrow, it was like Bucky Fuller was reincarnated in you.
By the way, that's saying something, because Buckminster Fuller was incredible and a man ahead of his time.
Way ahead of his time. He changed my life. So many times I studied with him. So, Jeff, thank you. Keep up the good work, and I appreciate your time. So,
thanks. You too.
Thank you. So we come back. We're going to a recap on the Rich Dad Radio Show. Once again, thank you to Jeff Booth. Welcome back. Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. Today we're talking about Bitcoin, one of my favorite subjects, and how Bitcoin will save the environment. I mean, that is a novel thought, because I've had a lot of haters coming at me saying, well, it pollutes and all this stuff, and they don't know what they're talking about. So I'm very happy to have Jeff Booth. He's the author of The Price of Tomorrow. He's a technology entrepreneur, and he knows what he's talking about. So I was very happy to have him on here. One more thing, listen to Rich Dad Radio to anytime, anywhere on iTunes, Android, and YouTube. But most importantly, with this program here, the reason we recorded at richdadradio.com is so you can listen to it again, because what he was talking about is a concept that's outside of what we're taught. We're so conditioned to inflation. And like I was talking about, our teacher's name was Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller. He was labeled the grandfather of the future by John Denver, because he always talked about the future. And Fuller predicted Bitcoin. He predicted the internet long before they ever were here. And so even Max Kaiser, who's a hardcore Bitcoin devotee, just adores Buckminster Fuller. So I started studying Fuller in 81. So listen to this program again and discuss it with your friends, because it's a whole new way of thinking. What happens if what really God wants is called ephemeralization? We talk about God, we're not talking about a religious God, we're just talking about the creator of the universe. Every entrepreneur should be building products that do more for less. And if you do that, you'll get richer and richer because you serve more people. And that's why we at Rich Dad created the cash flow board game, simply because you would work harder than me and it would serve more people and we get richer. Same as Rich Dad, the book. So anyway, that's the whole way of thinking. So please discuss it with friends, family members, and all this, because if you think your job is to make more money and you're going to work harder, that might be an old idea. So Sarah, what did you think?
Wow. Well, first of all, loved having Jeff on. This is his second appearance, but this concept, like you said, is so hard to wrap our minds around, because we are taught my house is going up in value. That must be a good thing.
Yeah.
Not the signals, what it really means behind it.
Well, buy the car now because the price is going to go up.
Right. And so we have this inflationary mindset that inflation is good. So yeah, it's a difficult concept. However, the way he explains it makes it so clear, because if you relate it back to Bucky and what about do more with less,
right?
Then it makes sense.
Yeah, and a job of an entrepreneur is to do more with less.
Yeah,
not raise prices.
Right.
I was talking to this real estate agent, and she was very happy because the price of houses are going up. I said, "What about all the homeless?" She said, "Screw them." I'm going, and then but she's an environmentalist. I'm going, holy mackerel! I mean, I got almost to a fist fight. It wouldn't look good for me beating up on a woman, but boy, I tell you, she loves prices going up because her commissions go up.
Right.
I called her a stupid, what?
But I loved. He also said scarcity in money equals abundance in everything else.
Yes. So let me torque everybody's mind, because time is of essence here. So I was sitting there as 81, I'm flat broke, going, what's wrong with my business? Why am I so screwed up? Well, I was following the old rules of money, which is raise prices, make things more expensive, when I should be really, as an entrepreneur, focusing how to do better for less. And so that's what's going to happen with, cars without drivers and trucks without drivers. That's what we're supposed to be doing. But the thing that Fuller talked about was that eventually none of us would have to work. That violated, talk about violate every concept, bone, paradigm, my body. And I argued with him. This is back in 81. I said, what do you mean? If people don't work, they'll be lazy MFs, and all this stuff. And I was into that. You have to work harder, dollars pay for, I was all my conditioning. And then I finally got it. It took me a long time. But if we didn't have to work, imagine if every day everything was given to you, which would be pure Marxism. That's what I had a problem with. He says, then the people with initiative would say, well, what needs to be done? So this may sound strange to you. So my goal with Kim was get to the point where we didn't need money and then we could do what God wanted done. And he says, inside every one of us is this natural desire to give back to our planet and our people. Then that's why there's rioting and all this stuff right now. Because exactly as Jeff says, the monetary system is causing us to think of scarcity, not enough, me against you, and all this. So when Fuller says, your job is to make people unemployed so that they don't have to work anymore. So that's why he invented the cash flow game. So you could sit there and go, maybe I don't have to go to work.
Right.
Maybe I don't need a job. And then a few people will become pure entrepreneurs for the sake of being an entrepreneur. And that's where Jeff is.
Right. And he said that, I think on the last show, we touched on that subject where if we got to a point where we didn't have to work, the price of everything would come down. And it almost describes like a utopia. But like you said, then the natural instinct kicks in. Could you imagine that world we live in?
I know. It would because you'd be doing it because you want to do it.
Yeah.
Not because you need the money.
Exactly. And so that goes back to the first chapter of Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Right.
Rich don't work for money.
Yeah. And that was the objective. That's why we're in the book Capitalist Manifesto now, is our job is to make people unemployed so they can do what they think they really want to do.
Does this relate to Bucky's 4 billion billionaires system? Right. Can you briefly describe that because I think that's a hard concept too for some people.
Right. Bucky said God wanted everybody. I mean, God is not, Muhammad or Jesus or Buddha. It's just the universe. And the principles look like God wanted everybody to be rich. So the sun gave us all the energy we needed. So he said there are 4 billion billionaires. All the sunlight comes in for free. Ocean, the sun drives the oceans and winds and all this stuff and tides. But back then it was only 4 billion people. Today there's 7.8 billion. But all of this is free from God. All of this energy is free from God. And that's what Jeff Booth is saying. But what Fuller was saying, here's our academics get in there. And he said, we must teach people to work for money, earn a living, get a job, be a good human being. And Fuller was so far beyond that. So that makes sense to you?
Yeah.
It's for free.
Yep. And when we're talking about prices coming down and not having to work, it's because everything we need is already given to us by the earth or the universe.
And the question is, if you didn't have to go to work, you didn't have to do, what would you do? Some people play golf. I go freaking nuts. But anyway.
I think for anybody who was raised in a family or, in a culture where you get up and go to work for a page, that would be the most difficult answer to give is what would you do if you didn't have to work?
Correct.
Because it's a foreign concept to us.
Yeah. It was so hard for me to grasp. It took about 3 years studying with Fuller. I studied with Fuller for 3 years. And every time it was just changing the way I saw the world from God's point of view or the universe's point of view, that God really wanted heaven on earth. But the trouble is our academics and military and all that get in the way. So that's why for the goal for Kim and I, it was when will we be financially free? And that was 94? 94. And we came out with the cash flow game in 96, Rich Dad, Poor Dad in 97. And we're just doing what we think God wants done. That's it. And you know what happened? People think I'm smart. I'm just kind of doing what God wants done. Because I was an idiot in school anyway.
I mean, if more people woke up every day and asked themselves, what does God want done? And like you said, we're not talking religion, but what is the purpose for them? What can they give back to this planet?
Right.
I think we'd be in an entirely different situation today.
Oh, God, yeah. If people didn't have to go to work to make money, what would people do? And then Einstein said it best. He says, imagination is more important than knowledge. So you tap into imagination. You have to sit there, you look around, you say, what does God want done? And what is it that I would like to do? There's something Fuller says there's a genius in every single one of us, but it's a different genius, different interest. So with me, I was always kind of interested in money. You know, I want to know how to get rich. And so it seems apparent that was my job, to teach people how not just to get rich, but how never to need money again. And you get away from this decentralized communist system called the Fed, the Treasury, and Wall Street, and you go DeFi, decentralized finance, which is gold, silver, and Bitcoin. So we're capitalists, and the central banks like the Fed, Wall Street, the Treasury are communist. Thank you for listening to the Rich Dad Radio Show.